All right. Welcome back, everybody. We are here for another podcast. I talked to you guys last week about having Paulo back on. Paulo was with us probably back in the spring, talking about his Amazon wholesale business. And we touched just like a little bit on his credit repair and funding business. But that is what we are going to concentrate on today, because not only am I having Paulo on here, I am now a customer of Paulo, and this is exactly where I am in my business reaching out for funding. So, Paulo, thanks for coming back on the podcast.
It's good to be back, John. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah. So, we talked about your Amazon selling, and then the past like 2 or 3 months, maybe it's just me noticing it, but your social media presence has definitely gone up. You've been posting stories, lots of stuff about your space on Amazon and how, I don't think you do so much coaching. It's a little bit of coaching. You definitely do a lot of educating on credit, repairing someone's credit. I'm sure doing a lot of, especially with like the younger community, some education on credit and getting sellers funding, in order to sell. And that's, exactly where I'm at. My first year in the business, I did everything with flipping credit cards, using some of my own capital. But now that I know, kind of my path going forward and I'm ready to scale, it was time for me to, start looking for capital. And I know my biggest issue was I didn't want to just start, applying to a bunch of places. I want to, when the time is right, apply to one or two and get the money that I want. And that's what you're doing now. So, Paulo, tell us a little bit about what you're doing with the credit, what made you get into it, and your business.
Yeah, so you basically touched on it really well. And my issue when I needed more credit, when I was really heavy into Amazon buying 2.5 years ago, it's just getting more money. You have products or you have brands, whether I think I was doing OA at the time in wholesale. So it requires a ton of money, right? You want to get 100K months, you need probably close to 100 consistently. You need 100K in product all the time in stock. So there's no better way to get money than to borrow it from somebody else. I mean, if you know your margins are high and you pay a small fee or interest to get it, I mean, why not do it, right? So that's what I did. That's the best way to scale. To put the money from the profits back into the business and grow that way isn't the way to grow. And big corporations do this in the same way, but they sell their shares, right? They invest, sell a part of the company, equity in that form, get funding and scale like crazy. Think Uber and things like that. So without other people's money, without investment, right, without borrowing money, you're just not going to scale at how fast you can truly scale, right? I'd rather make 100K a month and take 10% margins than $20,000 a month with higher margins, but not the same profit, right? So I needed funding at the time, and I reached out to people to get funding because banks weren't giving me enough money. And I just fell into this hole. Like a ton of other sellers face the same issue, on Amazon, right? Whether you're new or older, not enough education or don't know what to do. And basically they can't grow because they don't know how to do it, how to get more money, right? So that's where I started offering my services with funding first and credit repair and now credit building.
Yeah, I think it's just a really needed niche space in not just the Amazon world, but e-commerce in general. Because I've talked about this before on the podcast. There is no secret method to Amazon. There is no way of doing it without any money. Mm-hmm. I give it to all the online coaches, and there's a level of salesmanship when they say, hey, you only need $500 to start. Wholesale, hey, you only need $2,000 to $5,000 to start, maybe less. And that is true. And you probably should not jump into Amazon with 100K sitting in your bank account ready to use, because it's probably going to make you buy things you shouldn't. But there is no, if you want to get to 150, 200K a year, you're not ever going to do it unless you invest 6 figures into that also. And just the idea of flipping your money over and over and over again to get to that point, I suppose mathematically you could do it, but you're going to be in the business 10 years before you ever give yourself a paycheck. So at some point, and that's exactly where I am right now, is I gave myself a budget to start of my own money. And now I I see the path that I want to take, and now it's time to get some real money put together, because with Amazon you have to have a plan. And I tell people, I said, a perfect example of one of the brands that I work with is that first order was $4,000. 4 months later, my order is $38,000. Every single month, it kept on making money and I kept on doubling. And if I didn't have the money ready to do that, I am going to miss an opportunity. And once you start sourcing wholesale and you're making all those phone calls, you're putting all that hard work in, the last thing you want to do is find yourself a little gold mine that you're making money on and not be able to capitalize on it because of capital. So that's where we're at now. And I'm sure you deal a lot with two different or three different types of people. You have, that is so prevalent in Amazon, the younger crowd who, these 20, 21-year-old kids, young men, I should say, they're not kids, and they're young entrepreneurs. They've saved up their money, they've spent it, but they're only 20 years old. They're just not going to get credit so easily. And then you have the people that may have bad credit and need to repair it. And then somebody like me who has had credit, and I know that I've never really used credit cards a whole lot. And I came into it and never really realized that a couple of my personal cards, I was just over 50% of my limit. I was paying them every month and they weren't maxed out, but I was realizing like, I'm not getting the credit increases that I want to get. What is going on? Because I've always paid attention to my credit, but it's always been so good. I've never had to worry, but I've also never held these limits on my cards and used them as much because I'm not paying myself right now. So we're using the credit cards a little bit more in a personal way. So when I went and checked my credit, I saw my score and I was like, oh, that's about 100 points lower than it normally is. And I didn't realize how much me not paying attention hurt me for the short term. I'm lucky. I paid them down and we're going to go and we're going to get some more funding soon. But talk to me about kind of the process that you work with a typical client that might get a hold of you and want to use you for your services.
Yeah. So the clients are from like 18 years old to like 65. It's a huge range, right? And I would say for the Amazon side of things is it's a much younger crowd. And I think the hardest thing for them to understand is they want things fast. They want things just kind of like watch a few videos, do it myself, I'll figure it out. And they don't understand the concept of like paying for services to get way ahead, right? Like kind of coaching in a way, right? It's like to get good in OA or wholesale really fast. Obviously you could do it yourself and make mistakes along the way, but being part of a community of people that are all making mistakes and sharing that information or have a better path for you, but you pay them some money because of coaching, right? You're going to get there much faster. So the younger crowd just don't want to pay for anything. They don't want to pay interest. They don't want to pay for services. They just kind of want to figure it out. And that's actually what's holding them back the most. So when I get a younger person, I really try to discover where they're at. Have they done something like this before? And see like what their experience is, because sometimes I need to start with like a mentality shift, like try to understand what they think and how they think. And I try to move it towards like, this investment actually has an ROI on it, right? Compared to a lot of other ones. You can actually make a ton of more money, a lot more profit, etc., by getting help to get there faster. So that's kind of like the first bottleneck, right? With a lot of the younger crowds. They just don't understand that principle of just getting help. So that's kind of like a good base, right? That's what I learned, because sometimes people will just disappear. They will pay me, a deposit to start and then disappear because they either gave up or they didn't want to wait, etc. The thing what people don't understand is just it's not about a credit score. You can have a 720, right, which is actually a great score, but there's more to that in these credit reports. And it's my job to educate you, especially in the beginning, of like where are you now? Where do you want to be? Or maybe you have everything we need. We can proceed. But people don't know how to apply correctly. They put things wrong on the application. There's so many different things within the credit world, right, that people just don't understand. And actually, you put all these little things together, it becomes a big wall. You're not going to get funding. You may get $1,000. You're going to get a high rate. You're going to be denied. So that's when people come to me, and educating them to a certain point is part of my job, right? So that's kind of like where it starts for the most part. Yeah. Most people don't have everything ready to go.
Right. No, and it is true. It takes some educating. I knew, I've always been responsible with my credit, ever since when I was 20 years old, and the college I was at, they thought it was a good idea to give me a Capital One card. It was a terrible idea for the bank to give me that. Uh, with $1,000 limit. And, but then, I knew enough where I was like, I got turned down by one bank. And as soon as I saw that, because I had literally never been turned down before, I've always been somebody that either a mortgage or a car, I just walk in and say, give me the premier rate. And that's what I get. But because I use my credit card so much and that higher balance, I got denied. And right away, I knew I was like, don't apply anywhere else, because I know that, applying in those, hard pulls, don't start going out and applying. And I'm sure a lot of people have that mistake. And I knew enough right away to, I was like, okay, I need to get a hold of somebody, because if I got turned down for this one simple one, there's a reason for it. I need to pull my credit. I need to look at it to find out why I'm getting turned down and not apply anywhere else, not go for more, and also with credit cards and how to apply for these, how to apply for a credit card increase. What do you, because, they ask like, how much are you making, or how much do you think you're going to make? How much of a credit card increase should you ask for? All those are really technical questions, and the answer matters. And if you don't answer it correctly, you're either not going to get any funding, or you may not be asking for enough, right? And
That's
then
right.
once you ask for your little bump in your credit card, and if you don't ask for enough, well, now you can't ask again for a little while. So that's all I think the mistakes that, a lot of people make, and I would have made too if I wasn't a little bit older and kind of understood, okay, you just got turned down, don't apply anywhere else. A 20 or 21-year-old might get turned down once, and then, but every time Amazon sends them the, some little like offer, they go back in and
Yeah,
apply again and get turned down once. And now I'm sure you see it. Now you pull their credit, and they got inquiries all over the place. And it's like, and that's where it starts to take the time. That's where it's like, okay, we have to slow down. We have to get rid of these. And that's a lot of what you deal with.
that's right. Yeah, it's a process, and my job is really to make you look really good in the eyes of these lenders, right? The underwriters. Like, why should they borrow to you? Is the question they ask. They're gonna find every kind of a red flag they can on you. If they see one, they're like, let's dig deeper into this, right? There's the three primary bureaus out there: Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. But there's also secondary bureaus out there, about six of them, that like store all kinds of other information, right? They like confirm your identity, public records, all these other things that sometimes people aren't aware of. People have past things happen to them, and sometimes that could be holding them up too. So people make a ton of mistakes, and that's okay. A lot of them are fixable, but they take time. And when people need money, it's because they need it now. I mean, an opportunity comes to you, a wholesale buddy, hey, you want to go in with this deal with me? I need, 10, 15K here, and you don't have it. Guess what? Or you can't get it. You lose an opportunity to make money there. More than ever in my YouTube channel, I promote basically always be ready with your credit. Unless you really need it for a specific situation, you're always ready to kind of ask for more in a way. It's kind of like what I preach, because that's really powerful, right? Or have a line of credit available, or have an extra card just in case. There's like multiple ways to frame it, but in the business world, I mean, sometimes those opportunities come up and you want to say yes.
Exactly. Especially with group deals, not something that I've had the opportunity to yet, but I know it's done a lot in the Amazon world. And if I ever got usually, a larger buyer or a larger seller come to me and say, hey, do you want to go in on this, buy with me? If you say, no, I don't have the capital, chances are they're not going to ask you again. They're not going to ask you 3 months down the road or 6 months down the road. They're going to kind of say like, he didn't have the capital. Like, I'll ask somebody else. And so that's, really with the opportunity, especially in the beginning, and I'm officially 1 year into this, and I still consider myself very much in the beginning. I'm still in the outreach process. So losing out on an opportunity is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
One day when I'm at 150 or 200K a month and I'm not scaling anymore, well, then I can sit back and kind of pick and choose what I want to do. But right now, if somebody was to come to me with some great margins and a $10,000 or $15,000, investment, I want to be able to say yes. Especially, it may be a product they've already been selling. They already know that it's selling. They've kind of done the homework for me, and they just need somebody to help to invest to maybe get to a different tier of buying that is cheaper. So yeah, those are the things you don't want to miss out when you're starting out. And I think anybody else starting out in this business that's around the same area that I'm in with the outreach, you want to stay aggressive. And what's nice with yours that I learned is what is really nice is you do the work for us. Um, just an hour ago, I signed a power of attorney, which I did not know you could do over the internet like that. So that was different. But yeah, talk about a little
Yeah.
bit about how you're really doing the work for these people. You bring some value with that. You're not just giving, hey, advice like, hey, you need to get this off your credit and this off your credit and this off your credit. You just write a letter and send it into this address or this email, or hey, this is how you apply for a credit line. I mean, that sort of stuff, I can find that stuff out myself. I can look at enough YouTube videos and figure out how to ask for a credit line. But what
Hmm.
you're doing is you're doing the work and you're going out and getting the money for them. And that really brings some value to people that, like me, who I'm busy doing other things.
That's right. As a business owner, you focus on the highest ROI thing for your business, right? And let me do the repair, the funding. So my services for credit repair and funding is done for you. There are parts of it, like as you went through the onboarding, right? There are things you need to provide us, right? But pretty much from this point forward, my team will be doing the work. So, and that's the whole point. Make it easy, right? Make it frictionless. That's the goal for me, is and keep you updated as updates come in. And even if we don't have an update when we expect an update, you're going to get an update anyway. And then when it comes to funding, you also need to do some homework, or not homework, but some work depending on your utilization. Maybe you have a ton of inquiries. Maybe we need a credit line increase first. There may be steps that you need to take, and you need to actually come through with those steps. Otherwise, we won't get to the application level, right? And when I say application, I don't want to get $5,000 for you. That doesn't move the needle for any business these days.
No.
Maybe if you're starting, that's about it. But beyond that, you need like $25,000, $50,000 to actually do anything. Right? And then when it comes to business funding, we kind of work in tandem. Like I have the connections, I know how to apply. I help you with a lot of these things, but I'm not making the call for you, right? That's against the law to do that, right?
You can't actually make, I should say that you set everything up. You can't actually do it yourself, but you coach really up to that point.
That's right. Pretty much, it's not an interview, but basically when you apply with a relationship manager, a business relationship manager, I tell you what to say. And I tell you where to open bank accounts, how long to keep it there. So there's like, every bank is different and they change. So I know a lot of that information, right? I learn things from you, where you bank, things like that, where you are in your business. And then I basically build a path forward. How fast can we get this funding? What do you need to do? And until we get you funded, so it's done for you as much as possible, but the necessary and the required steps, that you would have to do yourself anyway. Like when you apply, you're going to be doing it yourself. So, and we can continue the friendship there too, and building your credit. Let's say you only needed 20, but you really should set yourself up to be able to get 50. Because you're going to get there real fast. So like I can help you take the steps after that if you wanted to, right? So it really depends on your goals, and everybody is different. Everybody's in a different phase, but it's all possible out there,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I would always tell people, especially with credit lines, if you get more than what you need, get as much as they're going to give you.
Mm-hmm.
A more traditional loan, if they're just cutting you a check and handing it to you, then you got to start paying on it. But, a credit line, you're only getting charged for what you're using in general. So, usually I would say I would think it starts probably around that 50K mark. I wouldn't see much funding under that would do me service for long term. Anything under 50K, if you're really looking to scale, is more of a band-aid to get you
Mm-hmm.
through a little bit of time. You're really looking for that 50 or 100K or in the six figures in order to be able to start planning your business and have that cushion. So you're not constantly looking at your bank account to see if you can, pay your full statement, your credit card off. So you don't have to pay interest. All those things are really important. So being able to have that funding also keeps you on track with making sure that you're not paying interest on your credit cards or interest on other things. Because it's definitely interest is one of those things that you think you're making money until your accountant breaks down that PM and you see like, oh, I didn't pay the full statement balance on this card that month, or that one this month. And those things add up, especially when you are dealing with a lot of money. That adds up fast, and it will eat your profit, or at least eat
Absolutely.
into your profit much more than you want it to.
It will. Especially with Amazon, with them shutting down an account or something like that, unexpected, the cash flow drops. You really, it's a cash flow business, right? You really got to
Yeah.
have some kind of money to keep the interest low, or basically zero, that you pay on a monthly basis. Absolutely.
Yeah, it is for sure a cash flow business. And I'm learning quickly. I'm like, no, I was like, it is a cash flow business, no matter how small or how big you are. Because most sellers that you talk to, it's like, what's your biggest, whether it's a $20 million a year guy or, a $500,000 a year guy, like, chances are managing cash flow is like one of the hardest parts of the business. No matter how much you're dealing with, cash flow is cash flow. And it's like that in a lot of businesses. I think even heavier in the Amazon or e-commerce business, because so much, and it's what's different from my last business, so much of your business is in your inventory. It's not in your rent. It's not in your insurance. Chances are you're working from home unless you have a prep center. But like, you don't have a lot of bills in other ways. And that's what originally attracted me to Amazon. Is I liked the idea of, most of the money I have to put into this business is my inventory, the vast majority of it. And as long as I feel like I'm buying good products, I should be okay. I don't have to go out and buy a building. I don't have to have a huge payroll. You don't have to deal with like workers' comp and
Yeah,
all those other headaches that I had with a brick and mortar business. But what you do have is, you need a lot of capital to flip. And
that's right.
that's where your business really comes in. And I don't think there's a lot of people. You can find a bazillion PPC specialists. You can find plenty of online coaching, some good, some probably not so good. But where you're at, I think, is a really valuable niche. Are you doing, I would assume, are most of your customers Amazon? Or are you starting to expand more of like a general e-commerce, or, branching out to all different?
All different. I do focus more on people that have an established business, like at least a year in business, because that opens a lot of doors, especially in lines of credit and loans. Some people prefer that instead of a 0% card. But there are also clients that are buying a business and they don't have a ton of money available, but they want to use leverage, right? Other things to get capital. So I would say over 90% is not Amazon focused.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because your business, you know, we're in the Amazon space here, but what you're doing benefits anybody who needs capital for their business. Doesn't matter if they're selling socks on Amazon or they have a brick and mortar type business that they need capital for. A clothing store could need inventory, or
Mm-hmm.
a host of other things that a business eats money, because anybody who is an entrepreneur or anything like that, businesses will eat your money if you are not aware of what's going on. And it's great that you really have a vast age range of who you're dealing with. Whether it's the younger crowd that needs to establish credit and really be educated on it and
Mm-hmm.
understand. I think the kids in Amazon understand the importance of it, but they may not really understand just how to go about getting it. What is your team like? How are you doing this just with yourself, or have you gotten to the point where you have some of your team helping you?
Yeah, I needed to hire it out because it just becomes too much. Especially now, I still have the Amazon business, right, and the VA for that, but just too many moving pieces, and to do it well, like provide the services really quick turnaround times, communication, things like that. Yeah, I've had to hire two more VAs, and they're doing a lot of the credit repairs background work, and I do a lot of the funding work myself, because like I said, sometimes it takes time for somebody, like, okay, I got to do this first, whatever, and then now we'll talk like 4 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now again. You know what I mean? So it really, it's a slower process for that. So that's my team right now. The goal is to have a team about 10 people at the end of the year, and doing different things, right? Social media. I have a plan for a community for credit repair alone as well. So there's a lot in the works too in the background that's going to allow me to do this full time. Really, that's the goal, because I still have a 9 to 5, but that's, I can't wait to leave.
Yeah, yeah, I bet. And do you think this is something that it may take over your Amazon also. And
Yes.
you become more, you may want to just do this.
Yeah, the goal, I was thinking about this today, is I enjoy funding. I enjoy that market in general, right? Credit. Repairing credit is actually, I enjoy it. I enjoy building credit as well. It's like, it's fun. It's exciting because I'm helping people. That's what I like to do, is help people. Another passion is investing, right? Stock market investing, things like that. I talk a lot about that as well on my channel, my stories, and my YouTube videos too. So I kind of want to combine them together. And that's how the community is going to be based off of. It's just a mix of building your credit, right? Towards wealth, and also how to invest, starting depending what you're doing, what you want to do, these are the steps to do it, really. And I'm not trying to like sell that as a course. I just want to share that and put those two together, right? Because I don't see them connected, really. I see people just doing credit, and let's focus on credit. I see people doing investing, whatever they may be investing in, but most people don't put it together.
Yeah. No, that sounds like a great idea. I mean, who knows? Take all that money that you're spending on inventory and go and invest that and see if you can't make yourself some money without the added headaches of Amazon. Yeah, I think that can be really valuable. And yeah, when you start to get into lending, and build out a team, I think it's just such a niche. It's something that a lot of people they just don't know how to do. Even me, coming from a business that I owned for so many years, the business had been around for so long. It was a brick and mortar. All I really was doing was getting a car loan for myself that was easy. And, I'm in commercial real estate. But those are, when you're buying that through an LLC or a business, it's really easy. I had 20 years of tax returns. I had a brick and mortar. It was a very easy way, a much more traditional kind of old school way of getting money. And he really
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to become tricky. But, in this sort of space, it's much different. It's much different. I mean, it's still the whole reason why I'm doing my Amazon. I'm doing my Amazon to fund my real estate, really, because that's what I like to do. Aside for because I love passive income. And Amazon, at least in the beginning, it is not anywhere close to passive. I think you can get it close to passive, maybe not passive, but I think once you scale and you have the right team behind you in a brand direct where you might have some exclusives and some contracts and some steadiness, I think Amazon at some point 2-3 years down the line, you can get it to where it's not a full-time job anymore. And I think a lot of people have done that, but I would never consider Amazon passive income. And, I'm really using my Amazon. I always say, I tell people, I was like, I'm kind of backwards. I did very well in business early. And then my business, the taxi business, of course, went into the tank, but I was able to buy commercial real estate. And I tell people, I'm like, my kids have college funds. I have retirement in my real estate. I was like, I'm one of the few that is backwards. I was like, I need to make money now. I have it
Mm-hmm.
set up for later in life. I'm kind of going in reverse and doing the Amazon business to really produce money and give myself a job now. And some people might be the opposite, but it just goes to show everybody's a little bit different.
That's right. Everybody's in a different stage of life, right? So, and you already do well with the real estate, right? So you know what you're doing there, and you just want to fund it more and increase the passive income.
Yeah. And really, all I need to do is fund it, is get to the point where I can pay myself with Amazon instead of having to use some of my real estate profits every month to pay myself. That's to pay
Mm-hmm.
myself much, much, much later in life.
Yeah.
And in this world of entrepreneurship, I always said when I got rid of my business and why I went to the Amazon business was working for somebody else just wasn't an option for me. I would make a terrible employee. I've done my own thing for too long and I'm too stubborn. But that's great. Well, I think today's episode is going to be, we're going to link all of Paulo's website and his social media links, because you have definitely been much more active on social media since we last talked. And along with your YouTube channel and everything, for people who are really looking for some funding to fund their e-commerce Amazon business in this space or in any space, really. So thank you so much for coming on today, Paulo.
Yeah, it's been great to talk about it, man.
Yeah, I
We have
think
a
it's
good
great.
conversation.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep on, from this day one of this podcast, on this podcast on day one, I talked about, my first day on Amazon, and we're going to keep on going with it. With what I'm dealing with now. So I think today was perfect because funding is where my bottleneck is at the moment. Not at the moment, but it's going to happen real quickly if I don't put together some funding. So Paulo's going to keep on helping me with that too. And I'll make sure to give you guys an update once we get through all that. So thanks again, Paulo. And until next time, guys, we are going to have lots and lots and lots of guests going on this month and all winter long. So stay tuned, and we will be back next week for another episode of the Marketplace Mavs.